Free agency opens and the Oklahoma City Thunder make a surprising move by declining Lou Dort's team option after saying on Saturday, right from Sam Presti's mouth, that they'd exercise the team option. What changed from Saturday to Wednesday as free agency opens today and Lou Dort hits the open market, but as a restricted free agent? Plus, Mike Muscala no longer on the Thunder. He's an unrestricted free agent. What are the roster ramifications of that? And the San Antonio Spurs joined the tanking party for Victor Wembanyama. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Arcade 1UP, Sam Presti zags on Lou Dort's team option, declines Mike Muscala's team option, but picks up Isaiah Roby's team option. What are the roster fallouts from all three moves? Plus, free agency starts today as the Spurs join the tanking party. What moves can OKC make today in free agency and throughout these next couple of weeks? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Today's show is brought to you by Arcade 1UP. Locked On Thunder is partnering with Arcade 1UP to give away three, count them, 1, 2, 3, free NBA JAM Shaq machines. That's right, 3 of them. These guys know what they're doing when they're making these retro 3/4 scale at-home arcade games like Pac-Man, Golden Tee, and many more. And now they've done it with NBA JAM Shaq Edition. Enter to win arcade1up.com/locked on. That's arcade, the number 1up.com/locked on for your chance to win one. So again, thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball, and the Thunder made a very interesting move on Wednesday. We waited around all day for the decision to come down, and the Thunder still have not actually put this out officially yet in terms of like an official transaction release, but it has been reported, all these moves. So technically things can still change, but The Athletic is rarely wrong whenever they're reporting this stuff, and Keith Smith, who's reported the Roby and Muscala stuff, is always right as well. So let's start with Lou Dort. So rewinding to Saturday, we've talked about this on the podcast all week. Sam Presti said Saturday at the introductory press conference that the team will pick up Lou Dort's player option, making him under contract for $1.9 million on an expiring contract. But instead, Shams Charania of The Athletic reports that OKC has declined Lou Dort's player option. And what that does is make him a restricted free agent. So this allows OKC an easier path to work out an extension with Lou Dort or match any offers any other team gives him. Now, this was always the most likely case scenario. Like this, until Saturday, everyone I've ever talked to about this within the NBA has always said that the assumption was this was the right path to go, and this is what they were going to do, was decline the option. And then Saturday comes around, and Sam Presti says that they were not going to decline it. And then Wednesday comes around, they did decline it. So they did decline it, and the question is what changed? Because Sam Presti did leave that caveat in there that if something changes, he'll let us know. So what did change? It's not the salary cap, folks. Like, we just got the salary cap numbers publicly, like in the NBA Twitter sphere. I guarantee you on Saturday, whenever Sam Presti made that comment, he had the salary cap projections. Is he trying to force Lou Dort's agent to go get an offer he thinks that Lou Dort's agent thinks he can get, and then they'll match it? Maybe. But this was always just the route that they were supposed to go with this decision with Lou Dort. So ultimately, I think maybe Sam Presti for once misspoke, and who knows why or the reason behind it. As far as OKC working out an extension with him, they can match any offer that a team throws his way. So that is a huge positive. And that allows you stability, and that allows you a security blanket uh, to where Lou Dort can go get his true market value, and wherever he signs on the offer sheet, you can bring him back on that same ticket. Why I think it'll be hard to envision a sign and trade aspect, and why I think that this is the best move for him to stay in OKC long term, is because the sign and trade, of course, would trigger a hard cap, and not a lot of teams have cap space to begin with. And it's just, would you want to hard cap yourself for Lou Dort if you're a team out there? Maybe somebody would, but ultimately, if I was a betting man, I would bet that Lou Dort is back in OKC on a long term deal. And as I said this week, it never made any sense to decline his player option. It just didn't add up because Sam Presti rarely lets these guys hit unrestricted free agency. And while they've been preaching 2023 cap flexibility this whole time, you're telling me that you have this this monstrosity of a plan with all this cap space that you can't afford Lou Dort. Does not make a lot of sense either. And if I had to guess, Dort will sign a contract either in OKC or elsewhere that the Thunder will match and they'll get their true market value. And if I had to guess what that will be, I think Lou Dort will sign for about $15 to $18 million per year. That's kind of where I'm at with Lou Dort's contract numbers. We'll see what's out there. The max they could have offered him whenever they picked up his option, if they were to pick up his option, would have been just shy of 15. So we'll see where it goes from here. We'll see what kind of implications that it has on the max that they can give him now that they've declined the option. It'll be like, I believe it's like 25% or something like that of the cap. It's all out there for the taking for Lou Dort. And this is what makes sense for both sides. And I talked about this last month. If you're the Thunder, you have the first right of refusal. If you're Lou Dort, you can go get what the market dictates, and both sides are happy. Neither side feels like they'll get over on either one of the other. And so this was always the best path for a long-term stay in OKC for Lou Dort. If they would have followed through with picking up his option, as I said this week, if they would have followed through with picking up his team option, I would have been a lot more scared about Lou Dort's, trajectory or Lou Dort's sustainability in OKC because of those other factors about Sam Presti not letting guys hit unrestricted free agency, and the big concern or the big worry of what if he did hit restricted free agency. You don't have that security blanket. You don't have that backup plan out there for you. This was the best move to make. It was the right move to make, and the Thunder, for whatever reason, changed course and ended up making the best move that they could to keep Lou Dort in OKC long term. And so we'll see what's out there for Dort. There's not a lot of cap space out there in general in the NBA, and so we'll see who has money left after free agency opens tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see how quickly he sends an offer sheet. Now, how this works is he'll sign an offer sheet, and the Thunder will have X days to match that offer. I believe it's a week to offer to match the offer. But for that entire week, whoever offered Lou Dort and got him to sign an offer sheet, that cap space cannot be redistributed. So the Thunder then can swoop in on the 7th day of 7 or however long they get to match it. They can then swoop on that last day and match it, and then every other free agent is gone for that team that signed him to use. So I would not expect this process to work quickly, because if you're a team that does have cap space, a very rare scenario in this league year and this year for the NBA. If you are a team that has cap space though, and you sign him, you've got that tied up for what exactly? For the Thunder to just come and match it in a few days, and you miss out on somebody else or miss out on a different transaction. So I think that this will move kind of slow, if I'm being honest. But I also, thought we could believe the Sam Presti intro presser. I'm not sure what changed. I don't think it's a salary cap. Maybe we can try to put our investigation hats on or our assumption hats on and read between the lines. But I think that the most logical thing that changed is either A, Sam Presti just misspoke on accident while talking to a big crowd, which we can all relate to, or B, Lou Dort's representation believes he can get Lou Dort a lot more than what the Thunder were offering. And the Thunder said, okay, if you truly believe that, let's test it. And you go sign an offer sheet, we'll match it. And that's the end of the day. And, that's the end of the discussion, right? And then you're locked in OKC long-term. So either way, I think that Lou Dort ends up back in OKC, mainly because the sign and trade aspect again, who's going to give Lou Dort the offer sheet plus give the Thunder assets plus hard cap themselves. It's going to be difficult to do a sign and trade, in my opinion. But again, things can often change, and they often do change. But that's kind of where we're at with Lou Dort so far. This was the right decision. I'm glad it came to this, and I'm glad that it reversed course from where it was on Saturday in terms of what we thought was going to happen. Coming up, let's talk about Mike Muscala, Isaiah Roby, the Spurs, and free agency as a whole. But first, I want to tell you right now, we're good friends over at Arcade One Up. Boom, shakalaka, we have big news. The one, the only. NBA Jam is back. Arcade One Up, the leader in home retro arcade games, is not only bringing the best game ever back, they're making it better than ever with the, wait for it, Shaq Edition machine. People are obsessed with NBA Jam, and I'm thrilled to tell our listeners that you get this incredible retro game that you can once again play hoops with a classic fashion with NBA legends in the arcade classic. You can jump clear across the court. You can set the ball on fire. It's the first sports game ever to feature real digitized NBA sports licensing. No fouls, no free throws, no quarters required. Compete with friends and family through all new Wi-Fi leaderboards. Make your connection better than ever. And pre-order today at Arcade One Up. That's arcade1up.com for an estimated early September ship date. Arcade One Up is the place for fun. They've got even more classics like Golden Tee, Mortal Kombat, and many others starting at $3.99. Check this out. They're giving away an NBA Jam Shaq Edition machine to our Locked On Thunder listeners by entering a chance to win this gaming console for your man cave at arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade1up.com/lockedon. You've got until July 8th to enter to win NBA Jam Shaq Machine console. Do not miss out. Enter today. And who are you going to play NBA Jam with? We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. Email the show, lothunderpod@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And let's talk about Mike Muscala. He had his team option decline. So the Thunder declined Mike Muscala's $3.5 million team option. Mike Muscala is now an unrestricted free agent. He can go to any team in the NBA. The Thunder do not have the right to match the contract. And he's as free as a bird to go anywhere he wants to go in free agency. Bit of a surprise, I guess, because again, yesterday I predicted that they'd pick up everybody's option. At the time, we thought we're working to the assumption of Sam Presti's presser on Saturday. But bit of a surprise. In general, he loves being at OKC. He was a good veteran leader. He cried at his press conference 2 years ago, talking about how much this community and organization means to him. He's a Thunder legend. He was a great guy for this organization. But as everyone is mourning the loss of Mike Muscala, I would just say, don't put the kids to bed just yet on a Mike Muscala return to OKC. I would just say be prepared to not throw away your Muscala jerseys yet in OKC. So in general, though, for Mike Muscala, while I would not rule out a Thunder return by any means, he can really help a contender as long as that ankle progressed nicely after surgery. Off the bench, shooting threes as a stretch five, getting more minutes and more run on a team that wants to win, he can really help somebody out there for a very, very low price. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how his offseason unfolds. Now let's talk Isaiah Roby. Isaiah Roby had this team option picked up, and there's a lot of intricacies with this. So the Thunder do pick up his $1.9 million team option. And then if you're pro Roby, you spent yesterday celebrating. If you're anti-Roby, you spent yesterday saying, well, what about July 3rd? Here's the problem with July 3rd. Technically, this 1.9 is not guaranteed until July 3rd. It's partially guaranteed. That guarantee date does not matter. It just doesn't. 1.9 is a drop in the bucket for NBA franchises. You can easily waive that outright in October and not care at all versus only giving him whatever they're going to count as partial of 1.9 million. They could have just declined his option yesterday and not paid him a dime. And you can counter that by saying, well, they're paying him part of it at least to do him a favor. That's not a favor. If they were to legitimately pick up his option yesterday on Wednesday, only to decline it on July 3rd, that's actually a detriment to Isaiah Roby. Because sure, you did pay him part of the money, but you've also tied him up for the first few days of free agency as roster spots begin to dwindle and teams begin to make their plans and teams begin to fill out their roster. He wasn't out there and available to them. So he can recoup that money in the open market today if he was available today. So picking up his option and then just waiving him in 3 days does not make a ton of sense at all, and isn't really even the player-friendly thing to do. It's not really even the high-class organization thing to do. He will need to compete in training camp for his spot. I don't believe that he's a lock for this roster, but picking up this option is not just to cut him on July 3rd. Picking up this option is to give him the chance to compete and a chance to prove himself and a chance to, and a chance to make the roster again. And then in October, you can waive him if he doesn't pan out, if he doesn't live up to that expectation. Maybe he can be a sweetener in a trade. As 1.9 a sweetener with Favors or with Jermichael Green. Who knows what it could be? I wouldn't lock him into the roster. I think he has a good shot to make it, though, but I wouldn't lock him in just because I picked up this option. But I certainly would not say he's going to get cut on July 3rd. So we'll see kind of how that all transpires. Today is the guarantee date for Theo Malvon, but again, 1.9 is an easy number to cut, and it's an easy number to come off of, even if you pay it in full in October. Give him the chance to compete, give him the chance to prove himself, and then ultimately, he probably still ends up on the chopping block. But still, give him the chance. You might as well, because you can easily afford to cut 1.9 mil. It's just too simple. What's going to happen tonight? So we'll talk about free agency in the third segment, but for the Thunder salary cap purposes, at midnight, the Thunder lose their salary cap, and they become operating as an over-the-cap team. This is the last chance. Today's the last chance for Sam Presti to take on a big contract and gain an asset from it. So at midnight, they'll be over the cap. They're still trying to move off of Jermichael Green's $8.2 million, and of course, they have Derek Favors' $10.1 million as well. Presti confirmed that they're going to find a new home for Green before October, so we'll see where that all unfolds. But just as a reminder, because I know that you've been spending this last year pounding into your head that they're under the salary cap floor, and this is such a dramatic change and a dramatic shift. At midnight, they're over the salary cap. So they can't really just become a wastelands for contracts anymore, starting at midnight. So it appears from everything that we've seen that the Thunder are going to try to acquire yet another contract tonight, today, and getting an asset for it, whether that be a second-round pick or 2 second-round picks or whatever it may end up being. But the main goal is still 2023 cap flexibility. It would just have to be a massive expiring contract that teams want to move on from, and of course, incentivize the Thunder to do it by giving them a second-round pick or something. But because the main goal is still keep that 2023 salary cap flexible and keep that kind of open for whatever they have planned next off season, whenever this team is more solidified, as they get a year older, as they get more developed, as they get another draft pick under their belts. All those things factoring in next year. So in a better free agency class next year as well. And not that the Thunder are going to lure away a ton of free agents, but it is a better class next year. So there's a ton of reasons to keep flexibility for 2023. That's what they're going to do. But just as a reminder, this is the last chance to go get a Bledsoe or Westbrook or whoever you think that they might get. Ultimately, it wouldn't shock me to see the Thunder just sit on this money and not do anything with it. But this is the final chance that they have. This is the final chance that they have to do something. So we'll see if they just kind of let the ship pass in the night, or if they actually do try to do something and try to get another move in before the final buzzer. But if I was a betting man, I would bet that they don't do anything. Coming up, let's talk about free agency, and let's talk about another team joining the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. But first, I want to tell you right now, better good friends over at Sakara. Sakara is awesome. It is a meal service that helps you feel your best by starting with what you eat. Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle that you truly enjoy with delicious, plant-rich, transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. Now is the time to seek wellness, joy, and abundance of areas in your life, starting with what you eat. With Sakara, you get nutrients-dense meals, snacks, and supplements to nourish your body without sacrificing taste or quality. You get this incredible option at Sakara with organic, plant-rich ingredients Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food medicine on a mission to nourish your body throughout the power of plants. It is awesome with their plant-rich ingredients. So check them out today by going to Sakara, and they're offering our listeners 20% off your first order. When you go to sakara.com/lockdown20, that's sakara.com/lockdown20, or simply enter the code lockdown20 at checkout. Sakara, sakara.com/lockdown20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockdown20. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunder Pod. The Spurs join the tanking party by trading DeJounte Murray to the Atlanta Hawks, and the Hawks give up Gallinari. They give up a 2023 first-round pick that's protected via Charlotte. They give up a 2025 unprotected first-round pick, a 2026 pick swap, and a 2027 unprotected first-round pick. The Spurs are going to be very bad next year. They're going to tank for a generational star in Victor Wembanyama. And if you shoot for the moon and miss, you're still going to hit a star in this draft. I promise you, there's going to be 5-6 guys who you think can change a franchise in next year's draft. Next year's draft is going to be very, very, very good. From Victor to Scoot Henderson to the Thompson twins to Whitehead. Like, there's so many options out there. So it's not as though they made this singular move only for Victor Wembanyama. They did it for a player who will likely be better than the DeJounte Murray. And at least if he's not better than Murray, he'll be under more control than Murray without having to pay him quickly from clutch and all that other stuff. So they have a chance to get Victor Wembanyama that they didn't have otherwise. And you're looking to improve those odds if you're the Spurs. The only thing that this really matters for the Thunder is, of course, another team going to gun after Victor Wembanyama. And you look right now, and there's just this high praise from Thunder fans about what the team did this offseason so far, and that's great, and you should be excited about the team, but realistically, they've added young guys that are very fun and exciting, but how much are those young guys going to kind of compete in young guys not necessarily get playing time. They're going to get a ton of playing time, but how much of those young guys impact winning in a positive way in year one? Can you outwin, Houston, Sacramento? Can you outwin Orlando, Detroit, Indiana, Washington, San Antonio, Portland? Right, and injuries are going to happen, and these teams are going to get off to bad starts, and we're not even through free agency yet. So, are the Thunder going to be better next year? I think so. I think they're going to be much improved next year. The Thunder have still never finished in the bottom half of, the lottery system in terms of finishing bottom 3, which ties you for the best odds at number 1. So they still, while tanking egregiously these last couple of years, have not had a bottom 3 record yet. I don't think they're going to do that this season either. But how much better are they than 4? Like, if they tried their absolute hardest, could they get to 6, 7, or 8? Sure. But I'm not sure how much better they can do than that. So that's whenever you're going to see them shift at the All-Star break to get themselves closer to that 4 spot, less organically. So it just adds another team in there. And for the Thunder fans, you're going to have to deal with more fan bases being annoying about Shea. Like, honestly, you're going to have to – fan bases are going to always make fake trades for stars and fake rumors for stars, and they're going to always put him in trade machines for SGA. And now they're going to do it while screaming, well, the Spurs did it with DeJounte Murray. Like, it's two totally different things, two totally different instances. But so brace yourself for that for multiple fans regarding Shea. Let's talk about NBA free agency, which should be kind of a quiet time for OKC. I expect them to re-sign Lou Dort. I expect them to look for trades for Jermichael Green and Derek Favors, and keep 2023 cap flexibility. Those are the 3 missions in free agency, and if they can accomplish all 3 things, then they get an A+ for the offseason. And so we'll see kind of how they react from there. That's the game plan, though. That's the strategy for the offseason. According to our good friends over at BetOnline, here are the odds. These are the only 3 players that have betting odds for the Thunder to go sign them. The first one is DeAndre Jordan. If DeAndre Jordan's not back with the Suns, the Thunder have the 8th best odds at landing him at plus 900. They're not going to land DeAndre Ayton. I've been saying Jordan. They're not going to land DeAndre Ayton. They have the 8th best odds to do so for DeAndre Ayton. If the Knicks do not bring back Mitchell Robinson, which I think that they're going to, the Thunder have the 3rd highest odds to get Mitchell Robinson at plus 400. And then if the Lakers do not bring back Russell Westbrook, if they try to trade him, of course, he's already opted in. If they try to trade Russell Westbrook, the Thunder are the lead favorites to get him at plus 350. I don't think they're going to do any of these three things, but that's just kind of what you can bet on with our good friends over at BetOnline for this offseason. So expect a quiet night tonight in terms of the Thunder, because I think that this Lu Dort stuff will drag out a bit because you don't want to tie up your salary on night one whenever the Thunder could just match it easily. Don't close the door on Mike Muscala returning. Don't expect the Thunder to cut Isaiah Roby on July the 3rd. Keep your eyes out for Tail Maladon stuff. And the goal of this offseason is to keep flexibility, re-sign Lu Dort, and of course, find new homes for JaMychal Green and Derek Favors. Other than that, we'll see if they make one final move to bring in a bad contract for an asset and who that might be. We'll break it all down tomorrow on the Locked On Thunder podcast. Follow along wherever you get your podcast from. And until then, be good and be good to one another.